anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. This city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning. Silent, bare, ships, towers, domes, theaters and temples lie. Open unto the field and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Never did sun more beautifully steep in his fair splendor, valley, rock, or hill. Ne'er saw I, never felt a calm so deep. The river glideth at his own sweet will. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still. I suppose my attitude toward London is a special and individual one. Wordsworth, looking at the city from Westminster Bridge, saw it as an Englishman and a poet. I knew it only as a child, larger than life, full of magic, full of wonders. I was born and lived in London until I was 7 because my father, an art dealer, practiced his profession here during that time. Remembered as each one of us remembers the place in which he was born and lived in as a child.
Oh, excuse me.
Gracious. It didn't take you very long. Well, I'll see about your box lunch for the train. Remember, it's Sunday.
I was hoping we could have a few minutes together before you left.
Cora had so much to do, I wanted to get out of her way.
Well, didn't you want to see me?
I did want to tell you how much I've enjoyed our friendship.
Oh, hello. Mother told us to sit in the living room till dinner's ready.
Not on the best sofa. Hello.
Have you ever been out on our porch?
Oh, yes.
Well, let me show it to you. It's awfully hard to grow up in a family with children.
My, I've never known a week to pass so quickly.
Why,
Yes? Yes?
You're going to write me when you get to Springfield, aren't you?
Of course. If you write me first.
But you'll have something to write about, your trip and Aunt Judith and how things are in Springfield. You write me as soon as you get there.
Maybe I'll be too busy. Maybe I won't have time.
Well, you find the time. Let's not have any nonsense about that. You'll write me first and you'll do it right away, the first day.
How do you know I'll take orders from you?
I'll show you. Give me your hand.
Why should I?
Give me your hand, confound it.
What do you want with my hand?
I just wanted it. What are you thinking about?
I was just thinking.
About what?
I was hoping you'd write me first, because that would mean you liked me.
Well, what's my writing first got to do with liking you?
You do like me then.
Of course I do. I like you better than any girl I ever met.
But you don't like me well enough to write first.
Well, I don't see how one thing's got anything to do with the other.
But a girl can't write first because she's a girl.
Well, that's nonsense. If a girl has something to write about and a fellow hasn't, there's no reason why she shouldn't write first.
You know, the first few days I was here, you'd do anything for me. And then you changed. You used to be a lot of fun. Then all of a sudden you turned into an old sober sides. Why, you even dressed like an old sober sides. What's the matter?
I just happened to remember something.
What? Oh, I know. It's because this is the last time we'll be together.
Mary, please.
But, Clarence, we'll see each other in a month when I come back. Oh, Clarence, please write me first, because that'll show me how much you like me. Please. I'll show you how much I like you.
Get up, get up! Oh, Mary, don't do that. Please don't do that.
No, you're just a bold and forward girl.
Oh, no, it's not that.
Oh, is it because it's Sunday?
No, it'd be the same any day.
Oh, you just didn't want me sitting on your lap.
Oh, it was nice of you to do it.
It was nice of me, so you told me to get up. You just couldn't bear to have me sit there. Oh, you needn't write me first. You needn't write me any letters at all, because I'll stay in the room without opening them. I never want to see you again.
Oh, Mary, listen to me. Mary, please. Oh, Mary.
The London I know is in part a child's London. And because I'm an actress by profession, I work with words. So I always think of the city in terms of the words written and spoken here. The bricks and mortar that bind London are really words. So London to me is a precious manuscripted golden treasure. It extends as far as our language goes. The lines of Edmund Spenser. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song. To the chant of Mother Goose. Pussycat, pussycat, where have you been? I've been up to London to visit the Queen. And included in this London that belongs to everyone are passion and tenderness and pain, the raw material of life put into words. It's London made up, invented, written down, so you can take it with you wherever in the world you may go. The real London is hard to discern. Every Londoner has his own version of what London is. As a hyphenated native, an American dash Londoner, my point of view is especially subjective. There are other Londoners who can be much more factual.
London is the principal city of the British Commonwealth. It is situated on the River Thames, which flows east and west through the city. The population of London is 8,171,902, which means that London is the second largest city in the world.
I couldn't have told you that. I was terrible at geography.
In third place is the city of New York, in America, which derives its name from the English city of York.
These were the kind of facts I learned at my English school days. But of course, they didn't stay with me very long. But what I do remember is the big, confusing world of the grown-ups around me. The giants who make a lasting impression on every child.
To me, London's beer. Rivers and oceans of it. Believe me or not, 11 million gallon a month is drank with the Londoners. And that's a lot of beer.
Friends of mine who know how much I love London agree it's a great city, but they often object that it isn't England in the way that people say New York isn't America and Paris isn't France. Well, is London truly England? This other Eden, demi-paradise, this fortress built by nature for herself against infection and the hand of war, this happy breed of men, this little world, this precious stone set in the silver sea, this blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England. I memorized Shakespeare, too, at school in California. And I found that my classmates also knew about London, though they'd never seen it. Long before going to school, Little children everywhere began to learn London by heart, almost as soon as they learned to speak. Children in Minneapolis, Toronto, Calcutta, Jerusalem. London Bridge falls down all over the world. When I was a very little girl, my world consisted of the house I lived in Hampstead, the garden, the street outside. As soon as I was old enough to play games and sing songs, my world expanded. The great bells of Bow, of the Church of St. Mary le Bow, are now part of the legend of London. They say that for about a generation, no Cockney was born in London. That's because the bells of Bow were silenced by a Nazi bomb in the 40s and didn't sound again until 1961. And of course, the only real Cockney is born within the sound of the bells, which reaches from here to here. This was the place in London Dick Whittington heard the Bow bells calling to him, saying, "Turn again, Dick Whittington, turn again." I can't remember when the story of his marvelous adventure was first read to me, but I've known it all my life. Dick Whittington's success story has got everything. Poor orphan boy who goes to the city, dreaming that the streets are paved with gold, the kindly employer who rescues him from his privations, the cat that unexpectedly wins him fame and fortune, and the bells whose voice summon him back to become the Lord Mayor of London. We all outgrow fairy tales like this before we get into our teens, but in London, it's hard to know where myths end and reality begins. The sounds of London that never cease to excite me are the colorful place names. The roll call of neighborhoods that once were separate towns and villages, and now make up the web of the city. Neasden, Dollis Hill, Willesden Green.
Maidavale.
Golders Green.
Notting Hill Gate.
Paddington.
Paddington. Chancery Lane.
Blackfriars, Charing Cross, the Elephant and Castle, which is the last stop on the Bakerloo line. And the number 88 bus goes all the way to Tooting Bec. It's not what they say, but how they say it.
Not a copper coin. Well, what did you tell her? You want a tit for tat? Use your own bees and honey.
That's pretty puzzling if you don't know Cockney rhyming slang. What he means is that his wife wanted too much money, bees and honey, for a hat, tit for tat.
Here, love. One pig's ear, one pimpum lot.
One beer and one scotch.
All right, mate. Lots of scotches.
Surely that doesn't need a translation. Terribly difficult to put into words. But there have been Londoners in love who've expressed these emotions unforgettably. One of them was Elizabeth Barrett Browning. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight for the ends of being, an ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely, as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old grief, and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death.
Nurse answers all the stock questions.
The patient improves, but it is required not to really hurt.
I was going to ask her to dance, but I guess that's out, huh? I was expecting a younger, more attractive nurse.
She's the 4th in 2 weeks. Daddy's a pincher. Get that guilty look off your face.
I lost your umbrella. I gave you the flu.
Don't be silly. It was raining. I got wet, so I got the flu. And it's not your fault. I was wondering how you'd look out of uniform. Even better.
It's my fault.
I would have caught this anyway. I catch colds even from weather forecasts. Thank you for the lovely flowers.
Oh.
What's the matter?
I don't know. You look so pale and sweet and faceless.
Remember, the nurse is right outside that door. Not that I'll call her.
One thing I learned these last weeks. I love you.
You loved me the first day.
I did.
You sure did. We should have told each other then. Look at all the headway we could have made.
For the first time in my life, I wish I had lots of money. Oh, money.
Daddy says it isn't what you have, it's what you owe.
I don't even owe enough.
And what are your prospects, young man?
Prospects? My old job on the news at 65 a week.
Please. I'm only supposed to think beautiful thoughts. Doesn't DuPont or General Motors need a president or something?
Well, the Paris office of the Europa News Service needs a reporter.
Paris?
It doesn't pay as much as a New York job.
But you don't need money to have fun in Paris.
Well, I've been working on a book. I should get back to the States.
Why can't you write your book here? Oh, Charlie, darling. Please marry me and let's stay here, please.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. Isn't it a little crazy?
Yes, it is crazy. If you had any sense, you'd walk right out that door and never see me or call me again. Maybe send back my umbrella and call it quits.
But I haven't any sense. No sense at all.
You have no sense. I have a 1-degree temperature. If I were 98.6, this would never happen.
Like a cat on a hot tin roof.
Then jump off the roof, Maggie. Jump off it.
The Tennessee Williams Pulitzer Prize-winning play,
unfolds with a shocking impact and uncompromising realism that makes its author the most talked-about dramatist of our day. Elizabeth Taylor is Maggie the Cat, a girl too hungry for love to care how she goes about getting it.
I don't mind making a fool of myself over you.
Well, I mind. I feel embarrassed for you.
Feel embarrassed. But I can't live on this way.
Now, you agreed to accept that condition.
I know I did, but I can't.
Paul Newman vividly plays the emotionally tormented football hero.
But how in hell on earth do you imagine you're going to have a child by a man who cannot stand you?
Burl Ives is a sensation, portraying Big Daddy.
I'm gonna pick me a choice woman and I'm gonna smother her in minks and choke her with diamonds.
Judith Anderson plays Big Mama.
When a marriage goes on the rocks are there, right there.
Jack Carson gives vigor and color to the role of Gooper, the older brother.
I don't give a damn whether Big Daddy likes me or don't like me. The point
around
is, I'm
here.
not gonna see this place run into the ground by a drunken ex-football hero.
You shut up about my husband. You shut up.
Madeline Sherwood portrays Sister Woman, the role she created in the play.
Oh.
Cat on a Hot Tin Roof is the passionate story of the conflict between people.
You and Skipper and millions like you living in a kid's world. Playing games, touchdowns, no worries, no responsibilities.
An intimate, revealing story of the conflict within people.
Maggie!
Maggie the cat is alive. I'm alive.
Sebastian only needed you while you were still useful.
Useful?
I mean young, able to attract.
She's babbling again, babbling and lying.
He left her home because
you stole him.
Lost her attractiveness.
What does attractiveness have to do with the son and the mother?
You see, Doctor, we were both decoys.
Let me.
This generation's greatest author and poet, writer of A Streetcar Named Desire and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, unashamedly writes of a woman's strong wants and a man's strange needs. 6 great stars combine their talents to recreate Suddenly Last Summer, Tennessee Williams' magnificent drama.
Something horrible happened to that girl last summer. Some dreadful, traumatic experience of some kind. What?
It was a one-piece bathing suit made of something white. The water made it transparent. I told him I didn't want to swim in it, but he just grabbed me by the hand and dragged me into the water all the way, and I came out looking nude.
Why did he do that? Do you know why he did that?
Yes. You know why I was doing it. I told you.
Girl living in London, it seemed to me that the Thames was the biggest, most enormous, longest river there could be. For many centuries, this was the chief highway connecting London with the world. And along its banks, one is constantly reminded of the power and prestige of the British Empire. Take an excursion boat down the Thames, and you're taking a trip backward into time. For an American, the Thames flows from London right up to the 4th of July. It was on this river, in a neighborhood called Rotherhithe, that an historic journey began. Some 3/4 of a mile from here is the place where the Pilgrims set sail on their long voyage to the New World. On Clock Orchard Street is a church, and in the graveyard of the church lay the man who guided the Pilgrims to their destination. You know, when the Pilgrims left the mother country, they thought they were setting forth on a whole new way of life. But one of the habits that was deeply ingrained in them was tea drinking. And that led to the incident that helped set the stage for the War of Independence. The Boston Tea Party. In the ledgers of this firm, Davidson and Newman Tea Merchants, established 1650, there's an entry noting the shipment of a cargo of tea to Boston Harbor, dated 1773. If I know anything about English tradition, that shipment is still being listed among accounts receivable. I wouldn't be at all surprised if at the end of each month, a letter is mailed to Boston which begins, "Gentlemen, very respectfully call to your attention. Payment due for the tea shipped you on Bethel, 1775 last." That's just a guess on my part. But what is a matter of record is that a famous statesman, William Pitt, made a speech about the Revolutionary War right there in the Houses of Parliament on November 20th, 1777. A speech which today might be considered inflammatory. Listen to his words. "My lords, the conquest of English America is an impossibility. You cannot, I venture to say it, you cannot conquer America. What is your present situation there? We do not know the worst, but we do know that in 3 campaigns we have done nothing and suffered much. My lords, you cannot conquer America. You may swell every expense and every effort, barter with every little German prince that sells his subjects. Your efforts are forever vain and impotent. If I were an American, as I am an Englishman, while a foreign troop was landed in my country, I would never lay down my arms. Never. Never. In the minds of all of us who read about London, and in the imaginations of those who visit here, this part of the Thames, the Tower of London, is often associated with violence and crime. It was here that King Richard III murdered his 2 nephews, and it was here that traitors paid their penalty under the headsman's axe.
Now, friends, we've just arrived now at a very tragic spot in the tower. This is the private execution site on Tower Green. This is where young Anne Boleyn's head was struck off by a swordsman in the year 1536.
It's no wonder that the whole surrounding area has a sort of sinister aspect. The alleys and lanes that fringe these banks are peopled by legendary pickpockets, highwaymen, all kinds of evildoers, some fictional, some real. A few hundred yards from here, the infamous Fagin conducted his charm school. The arch-villain Dr. Fu Manchu spun his web in the dark shadows of Limehouse. Jack the Ripper haunted the streets of the East End in the early hours of dawn. For most of us, however, the greatest foe of criminals who ever existed was a fictional Londoner named Sherlock Holmes. We all know his habits, his eccentricities, even his address. 221 B Baker Street doesn't actually exist. And yet that doesn't matter because you and I have been inside his famous rooms many, many times, thanks to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So, Watson, Holmes said suddenly, you do not propose to invest in South American securities. I gave a start of astonishment. How on earth did you know that? He whirled around on his stool, a gleaming test tube in his hand. In 5 minutes, you will say it is absurdly simple. I shall say nothing of the kind, I'm sure. You see, Watson, it was not really difficult. By an inspection of the groove between your left forefinger and thumb, I deduced that you did not propose to invest your capital. I see no connection. Here are the missing links. 1, you had chalk between your left finger and thumb when you returned from the club. 2, you put chalk there when you play billiards. 3, you never play billiards except with Thurston. 4, Thurston has securities, which he wished to sell you. 5, your checkbook is locked in my drawer and you haven't asked for a key. 6, you do not propose to invest. How absurdly simple, I cried. As you watch the hundreds of merchant ships, the barges and the tugs crowding the Thames, you think of the river only as a commercial route, a grimy industrial artery. But it's given inspiration to artists throughout the centuries. If you asked a doctor to name the part of London which has most meaning for him, he would probably say Harley Street. A lawyer probably would name the Middle Temple or Lincoln's Inn, and a newspaper man, Fleet Street. I can't think of a single place that stirs my imagination more than this one on the south bank of the Thames. This is where Shakespeare's Globe Theatre once stood. This was where his words created Denmark, Venice, Rome, Verona, in England. Within these few square yards, armies clashed, thrones fell, and lovers died for love. It was here that the actor's manual, the handbook for players, was dictated, when Hamlet said, "Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue. But if you mouth it as many of your players do, I had as lief the town crier spoke my lines. Nor do not saw the air too much with your hand thus, but use all gently. Be not too tame neither, but let your own discretion be your tutor. Suit the action to the word to the action. The purpose of playing, whose end, both at the first and now, was and is, to hold as 'twere a mirror up to nature, to show virtue her own feature, scorn her own image, and the very age and body his own form and pressure. Yes, the play's the thing. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness, but still will keep a bower quiet for us, and a sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. Therefore, on every morrow are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth. Those are great and extraordinary words by John Keats. It's hard to believe that all of this is part of metropolitan London. In the green time of the year, London is very, very green. That's because, as someone said, living in London is like living in the head of a lettuce. Londoners don't disguise their feelings about the climate. Even on the brightest day, you see them armed with umbrella and mackintosh. There's one redeeming feature to all the rain, though. It makes everyone's garden grow. London is a city on so many levels. It has so many facets that it's difficult to place in any one category. There's a few people that really know it. There's the London of the people who live here and work here. The London of the people who live elsewhere and come here to work. And the London of the tourist. To the visitor, there's a new and exciting prospect hidden around every corner. Every time I come to London, I start out with the resolution that I am not going to see the changing of the guards at Buckingham Palace. After all, it's only a military drill. It never varies from one day to the other, and if you go there expecting any surprises, you're in for a letdown. Well, that's what I tell myself, because secretly, down deep, I don't like to think I'm a squib. I guess I am. This ceremony is just one scene out of the pageant that has been taking place here for centuries. London is the seat of kings.
King Henry VIII had 6 wives, and the way to remember them is divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived.
Thank you, Mark. Divorced, beheaded, died, divorced. Dear, now, which one was beheaded?
The first one he beheaded was his second wife, Anne Boleyn, and she was the mother of Queen Elizabeth I.
Thank you, Mark. While the male monarchs of England were notable warriors and politicians, you'll understand why the rulers who appeal to me the most are the 2 great queens, Elizabeth I and Victoria. Everyone knows that Elizabeth's realm produced the most celebrated poets and playwrights in our language. Shakespeare, Marlowe, Ben Jonson, scores of others. And even the Queen herself, under the threat of war, as the Spanish Armada approached England, uttered these words that still ring in the memory. My loving people, we have been persuaded by some that are careful of our safety to take heed how we commit ourselves to avoid armed multitudes for fear of treachery. Let tyrants fear. I have placed my chiefest strength in the loyal hearts and goodwill of my subjects. And I have come amongst you at this time, being resolved in the heat and midst of battle to live or die amongst you, to lay down for my God and my kingdom and for my people my honor and my blood in the dust. I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and a king of England too. And think, foul scorn of Spain or any prince of Europe should dare to invade the borders of my realm. Rather than any disorder shall grow by me, I myself will take up arms. I myself will be your general, judge, and rewarder of every one of your virtues in the field. That was the appeal made to her subjects by the Queen of a then insignificant country. Within 250 years, England had become the greatest power on earth. And a simple 18-year-old girl, Victoria, was about to ascend the throne. In her diary, written at Kensington Palace, she tells us how she faced that ordeal. Tuesday, June 20th, 1837. I was awoke at 6 o'clock by Mama, who told me that the Archbishop of Canterbury and Lord Cunningham were below and wished to see me. I got out of bed and went to my sitting room, only in my dressing gown, and alone saw them. And they acquainted me that my poor uncle, the king, was no more, and expired at 12 minutes past 2 this morning. And consequently, I am queen. 25 years later, mourning the death of her husband, the Prince Consort Albert, Victoria made this entry in her diary. First, January, 1862. Have been unable to write my journal since my beloved one left me. And with what a heavy, broken heart I enter on a new year without him. My dreadful and overwhelming calamity gives me so much to do that I must henceforth merely keep notes of my sad and solitary life. This day last year found us so happy, and now, last year music woke us, little gifts, New Year's wishes brought in and given to dearest Albert. The children waiting in the next room, all these recollections pouring in on my mind. In dear Albert's room, all remains the same. I felt as though I were living in a dreadful dream. Everyone who has tried to say London is this or that has been right and wrong. It is a waving fan, and wrinkled leather, and an ivory spear. And something more. Something that expresses the will of a city and its people to survive in the face of every conceivable catastrophe. This fatal night began that deplorable fire near Fish Street in London. The whole city in dreadful flames, all the houses from the bridge, all Thames Street and upward to Cheapside were consumed. There was nothing to be heard or seen but crying out and lamentations, people running about like distracted creatures. Strange consternation was upon them as it burned churches, public hall, exchange, hospitals, monuments and ornaments, devouring after an incredible manner houses, furniture, and everything. God grant my eyes may never behold the like. 10,000 houses, all in one flame. The noise and crackling and thunder of the impetuous flames, the shrieking of women and children, the hurry of people, the fall of towers, houses, and churches. You and I have been seeing London through the eyes and minds of some of its inhabitants, past and present. When you think that the city has stood since long before Roman times, when you think of the history that has been made here, the procession of famous and infamous figures it has produced, It's almost impossible to grasp the essential character and spirit. In my lifetime, though, I can't help but feel that it was best summed up by a great Englishman, Sir Winston Churchill. On VE Day, May 9th, 1945, he said to the people of London, "You have been attacked by a monstrous enemy, but you never flinched or wavered. No one ever asked for peace because London was suffering. London, like a great rhinoceros, a great hippopotamus saying, London can take anything. God bless you all." Thank you. Good night.